You don't have to look straight at the camera or anything.
Okay.
You can just look here.
Join me as I share with you the compelling story of beer and its place at the mill in Vicksburg, Michigan, an historic paper mill brought back from the verge of demolition, now to become a center of music, entertainment, beer, and culture.
This area has a long history of creativity, music, culture. Really what we've done is we've made an attempt to build on what was already here and to create a space where it could grow and flourish. And that's really one of the primary goals of the mill.
In 2014, Chris Moore, who is a multi-generational Vicksburg native, found out that the beloved mill was potentially going to be torn down.
Nobody would ever want to see such a beautiful building with all that history be demolished.
Back in the early 1900s, the Kalamazoo River Valley made more paper and cardboard than anywhere else in the world, and it was known as Paper City. And in fact, in Vicksburg here, which is just a few miles south of Kalamazoo, we had the Lee Paper Mill. And the Lee Paper Mill was a huge producer of paper, made 17 tons of paper a day. And it's a massive building. It's 400,000 square feet, it's on 32 acres of land, and it was just a gem of the community. And it was the economic and cultural driver of this whole place. And it opened in 1905 and then closed down in 2001. So just about 100 years.
A lot of people know about this place. Mill means a lot to the history of papermaking, for sure.
When it shut down, it was an incredibly sad story for the village. And like so many other mills in Michigan and all across the Midwest and across the country, it was, a huge loss to the community. He got to work and put together a team, including me and a bunch of others, to try to figure out what to do with this place. And he's very passionate about this because not only was the mill important to the community, but it was important to his family. His grandfather worked at the mill for decades, his dad worked at the mill for decades, Chris and his brother worked there. So there was a real intense passion and care for the building itself and also what it meant. And in fact, the building is gorgeous, and it's one of the best examples of the paper mills that existed in the early 1900s. Some of them have been torn down, some are falling apart, and ours is in pretty good shape. Over the last few years, we've been doing analysis and talking to people and doing studies, and in the end, what we want this to become is a national destination. And it will be focused on 3 major areas: beer, events, and music. And as far as events go, you can envision conventions, conferences, social events, weddings, parties, those kinds of things. And we have multiple spaces for smaller to larger events inside and out. Beverages in general, and probably some food as well. We'll have some interesting restaurants. We'll have breweries. We'll have a distillery. We're also going to have a brewery museum. It'll be a beer destination for sure.
Breweries and how they started up is truly an American dream type story. I have such fond memories of sitting with my dad, elbows up to the bar, and just being mesmerized by a Ham's moving water sign. I think everyone in their background has a beer memory like that, of a majestic sign or just a moment in time. And when you come into the mill and see what we have going, you'll have that feeling 100 times over. What makes me excited is that we are going to celebrate the regional breweries, not the big boys. We're going to show and tell their stories through their signage and advertising.
Once it's up and running, it will be a really strong commercial economic engine as the mill was in the past. The other part to talk about a little bit as far as sustainability goes is not just about financial, but as far as the site itself. It is a brownfield site. And in the past, the mill, of course, in the old days, they weren't doing the most green and environmental things with their waste materials and things. So there's been some damage to the creek and some damage to the site, and we're working on all of that so that we can restore it to its previous glory. As far as the timeline goes, we are already working on the building. We have been working on it for about a year, and it's all about stabilization. So bricks and roofs and removing lead paint out of the inside of the building. And we're pretty close to being done with the lead abatement, and the roofs are almost done, and the masons should be done with the exterior brickwork by the end of this year. In total, it'll take them about 2 years to do. Then we'll start working on the inside. We expect that probably by end of 2024, early 2025 is when we'll be able to open up the whole place. In addition to having breweries, a distillery, music events, a brewery museum, all of these things, there will be other parts to the mill as well. There's going to be a really great boutique hotel. Envision coming for a day to go to a concert or to go to a conference, or you can envision staying overnight in the hotel or even longer and be able to access whether it's a concert or a conference or it's something in downtown Vicksburg. An important part of the mill is, just like it was in the past, the community kind of grew up around the mill, and the two are really intertwined. They have a symbiotic relationship. The mill needs downtown, the downtown needs the mill. And we envision being able to sell the mill as a place where people can go for their conventions and conferences, but not just go to the mill, but they could just walk a few minutes and go downtown and see this beautiful historic village and enjoy the shops and restaurants and things down there too. And we've purchased a few of the buildings downtown. We've started renovating a couple to do a historic standard renovation, and all of our buildings will be restored just like we're restoring the mill. And we're eager for the time when the mill opens up and the downtown is revitalized, and there's a lot of people going between downtown and the mill. It's just about a 5-minute walk between the mill and downtown, and we definitely think that'll be part of the attraction.
We decided to start our own artist residency. It's grown into 2 artist residencies now. We've got one that is catering pretty specifically to visual artists, authors, filmmakers, people working in digital media. And we are doing a slow roll into a musicians-only artist residency. We're in the process of branding so that it can be its own entity. It's a big deal that it have its own space within this whole ecosystem.
One of the buildings downtown is going to become the home of our Mill Music Residency, and we launched the Mill Music Residency about a year ago.
Big hand to Chris Moore for putting this whole shindig together. Awesome. I can't wait to come back here next year, and then 5 years from now, and then 10 years from now, see what happens. Love you guys. Thanks.
Had a great concert there, and we're working on plans right now and designs to refurbish that building to be the home for the Mill Music Residency. So there's a lot of action going on downtown too. There'll be walking paths and biking paths and all sorts of great reasons for people to go back and forth. So the connection is really critically important to us. We've been doing kind of pop-up and temporary things in the buildings currently until we're able to renovate them completely and have new tenants in the buildings. We have the Prairie Run Artist Gallery in one of the buildings. We have an artist working in another building. We also have what we're calling the Annex, the Mill Annex in one building that is basically a showcase for what's going to become at the mill, and we open it up when there are community events going on and when it kind of makes sense.
Right now we're in the Annex space. It's a part of the former pharmacy here in Vicksburg. And we decided when this came available to us that we would create a space that was sort of a mini mill, something that represented the sorts of things that you would be able to see when you come to the mill. Added some art to the space. We've added 35 antique stoves, and we've added a pretty significant representation of some brewery memorabilia. That is getting people primed for the experience of a museum space that we're creating at the mill that is dedicated entirely to regional breweries and the impact that those breweries had on their local communities. And as you dig more deeply into these artifacts, you see a really interesting historical story of America, and really kind of working class America, and that maker component of America that we're really clamoring to get back to.
A word you'll hear going forward is breweriana, which is a fancy term for all of beer advertising and memorabilia. So if you have an item in your basement, a sign you found in your attic, something that grandma has kept, or a basement bar that's been neglected and you have some signs, we will give them a good home, a loving, appreciative home. We will restore, care for them, and we'll explain your sign in historical terms in the museum. And it will be on a grand stage at the mill, which will be here long after we're gone, but your sign will persevere and prevail. It's advertising, and it could not go to a better home. One of the things I'd like to touch on too is curation. We both have Mindy, who is a gem of a person that is taking in all these items, trying to wrap her head around them, preserve, package, catalog them, but we're also doing the equivalent or a parallel online. So you'll be able to go online, and whether you want to search by brand, cams, breweries, Fox Deluxe, you'll see the items that we have, their size, their measurements, their composition, and it'll all be cataloged online, the same with recognizing the collectors that we got those items from. So because you can't get here, or maybe can't get here for a while, go online. It's a huge rabbit hole of breweriana. Chris Moore is the founder and the brains and passion behind Old Stove Brewing, which has its headquarters in Seattle on the beautiful Pike Place Market. If you're ever out there, it's worth a trip. It's a tribute to old beer and craft beer with a beautiful view of the bay. But Chris is going to bring the Old Stove Brewery and experience from Seattle to Vicksburg here, and it'll have a presence and place in the restored historic paper mill. Johnny Pfeiffer from the Pfeiffer Brewing Company in Detroit, Michigan. This is a lighted sign lit by a single fluorescent bulb made by the Neon Products Company of Lima, Ohio, a prolific advertiser and maker of beer and all advertising signs. But this would be not an inexpensive sign, but not as expensive as a true metal or glass one. This was a plastic insert which you would remove one of these ends and could slide this in if you needed to relamp the bulb. And the only thing that really went wrong with these, they were designed to be lit up all day long in the bar, is a starter may go out on it or the bulb. But these were pretty durable, long-lasting signs with multicolor painting, and when lit up, these would attract the eyes and the devotion to Pfeiffer beer. The Ham's Bear. This iconic character was developed in the 1950s by the Theodore Ham Brewing Company of St. Paul, Minnesota. What we have here is a barback porcelain beer container from the 1970s made by the Serra Marte Company in Brazil, and they pumped out a lot of stuff in the early 70s. You'll see ceramic ashtrays, St. Patrick's Day mugs, Oktoberfest mugs. The public was clamoring for beer memorabilia, and they churned it out. Here's one that I recognize up here in the archives that I sold Chris myself, and this is beyond cool, I feel. Breweries would often commission illustrators, whether they be employed by the ad agency or not, but this is actually an original artist's oil. And a person brought this to a beer show. It was laying out in the parking lot. It was an outdoor show, but you can see that it is truly tacked down canvas with its color and depth. It's really amazing. And what they did was mocked in, this is a paper bottle of old style that they obviously had to die cut around the hunter's fingers. But what they would do here is they would do a scan, I guess not a scan, but they would take a photo of this, and then the printer would personalize this with the ad campaign, or drink old style lager, or they could insert their ad choice over to the right. But to have something of this magnitude and time, I imagine in the old days this probably took a good week to paint this, with the highlights on the shotgun and the plaid and his Norman Rockwell type cherubic cheeks and smile. Wouldn't you want to drink an old style after seeing this? But this is the kind of stuff that we're seeking for the mill, the one of a kind, the one-offs. And this is truly a unique piece.
I just can really imagine what it'll be like, what an experience it'll be like for people that, especially I think, that are in big cities and they just want a little time away and to go somewhere where they can breathe and hang out and enjoy kind of ag land and an agricultural area, but yet have all these wonderful amenities right there in this beautiful historic structure. It really will be unmatched. And while many places are old historic mills that are redone and have something going on, and there are beautiful concert venues, and there are wonderful restaurants, and there are wonderful breweries and distilleries and bike paths, lots of places, different places have pieces of this, but there really aren't many places, if any, that will have all of these things in one place. So the mill at Vicksburg, with its 120 acres and its 400,000 square feet of property in this beautiful building and connected to this historic downtown, really will be unmatched for all the things that it will have with it, in it, and around it for people to do and to visit.
Art is a great community building tool. It is such a powerful way to bring people together, to bring joy to people. And the last year, if anything, has taught us that community and the enjoyment that comes from being together with people is a really big deal, and we miss it when we don't have it.
We're going to be celebrating the building, the people, the machines, the processes, everything that happened in that building in the past. And we're also going to be telling a new story of innovation. Kalamazoo has always been known for innovation, and we're just going to be the next generation of that at the mill. And it'll be a lot of fun. So when it brings back to one of our guiding principles, how are people going to have fun, whether it's the musicians, the artists, convention goers? Everybody's going to have a fun time, and there's always going to be something new to look at and somewhere to go and to experience. And we like to say it's going to be a curious place for curious people, and that there will be surprises at every turn. And I think the way we're designing it, the way it's turning out, it really will be one of those places that you'll go to and tell all your friends and say, wow, who knew in Vicksburg, just a little south of Kalamazoo, that you could be in such a beautiful place and have so much fun and want to go back to again and again.
Part of it for 21 years. It's kind of like the old girl in the place. It meant a lot to a lot of us. There's been a lot of people that have retired from this machine, that have worked on this machine all their lives. And, it's kind of sad to see the thing go. And, a lot of us will miss it. A lot of us will miss the camaraderie of the people that we worked with on this machine.